PhD and you're digging deep into this stuff and you're uncovering these studies that date back decades and decades. Was this, and when you would kind of present this to your colleagues or, whoever you were working with at the time, were they on board with what you were finding and kind of the path that you were blazing? Or were they more on the conventional path of like, hey, this isn't really the way we do this?
No, they were very supportive actually, because, whether it was talking to other graduate students or whether it was talking to my advisor or even some of the other professors, I would be explaining the results of the research. So it was like, my story was one thing. Okay, fine. It's an anecdotal experience. It makes sense. But then when you translate that and you start to get the same results in laboratory animals, because that's the what you're supposed to be doing in graduate school. We were running a whole collection of experiments to induce insulin resistance in mice using dietary methods, and then reverse that using either intermittent fasting or diet or exercise. So
the way that you induce a diabetic response in an animal is to put them on a pretty high fat diet, right?
So that was another epiphany for me, right? I'm sitting here with tasked with the objective of trying to make animals insulin resistant so that we can use them as a testing ground. And when I started looking in the literature, I was like, how do I make an animal insulin resistant? Okay, I probably got to give them a high fructose diet or a high sucrose diet. And so I was looking in the literature with that preconceived notion. And then I would read, we induced insulin resistance in laboratory animals by feeding them a diet containing 70% saturated fat for 8 weeks. We induced insulin resistance. We induced type 2 diabetes in laboratory animals, by feeding them a high fat diet. And I was like, this is unreal. You feed animals a high fat diet and they develop diabetes. Why is it that when in the public, when you say the word diabetes, the first association people make is sugar, right?
Yeah, I had Neil Bernard on the podcast. I just put an episode up with him last night, but I did a previous episode with him where we talked a lot about this, and people went crazy. They're like, that can't be true. Because he was talking about the real cause of this condition is people eating too much fat.
100%.
And that it's just, that flies in the face of everything that you thought that you knew.
The disconnect between the research and what the public believes and understands is mind-boggling.
It's massive.
Absolutely mind-boggling.
All right. So